السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا ونبيا. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Continuing on with the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam's legendary military empire in the era of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan, picking up from page number 285, 13.6.4, Uthman's concern for the borders of the Islamic State. As mentioned previously, the Muslim state expanded in the time of Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan. Hence, he implemented a policy of continuously fortifying the outposts in order to protect the borders from the enemy's attacks. This happened either by filling them with soldiers or by building various garrisons there. The first message written by Uthman ibn Affan after becoming Caliph was addressed to the troops at the outpost. It commanded them to protect the borders of the Islamic State. In order to better facilitate the administration of the state, Uthman ibn Affan appointed Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan to rule over both Syria and Mesopotamia and take care of the outpost. He ordered him to launch a campaign to Shamshat, either leading it himself or appointing one of his high-ranking commanders who was brave and experienced and who wanted to go for jihad and fight the Byzantines. He also wrote to Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan instructing him to station some men at the outpost of Antakya and allot some of its land to them. He did as he was commanded. Uthman was concerned about the outpost and used to send people to investigate the situation for him. Uthman ibn Affan wrote to Abdullah ibn As ibn Abi Sarh and commanded him to protect the outpost of Alexandria by stationing an army there and setting a fixed salary for the soldiers. He also instructed him to rotate the soldiers lest they be harmed by such a lengthy posting. He wrote, "You know how concerned the commander of the faithful, Umar ibn al-Khattab, was about Alexandria, as the Byzantines have broken their treaty twice. Therefore, keep them stationed in Alexandria, pay their salaries, and rotate them every 6 months. It was the habit of Uthman ibn Affan's commanders, when they had taken over an enemy fortress, to prepare it as those before them used to do and to station troops to stand guard there. They also invented new ways to improve their fortification. Among the fortresses reconstructed by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan was the fortress of Euphrates, namely Sumaysat, Malatya, Shamshat, Khamkh, and Qaliqla, which the Muslims took over during the conquest of Armenia in the time of Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. In Qaliqla, the commander Habib ibn Maslama al-Fihri settled 2,000 men and allotted them land so that they would remain stationed there. Uthman also made him responsible for setting up border posts in Syria and Mesopotamia and then managing their affairs and protecting them. When Al-Bari ibn Azib conquered the outpost of Qazvin, he assigned 500 men to guard it, appointed a commander for them, and allotted them land that did not belong to anyone. They cultivated and irrigated the land using the rivers there, and they dug wells. When Sa'id ibn al-As conquered Tamisia, He stationed 2,000 men to guard it and appointed a commander for them there as well. There are also other examples of fortifying the border posts in the time of Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan and filling them with soldiers to guard the borders of the Muslim state. Uthman was responsible for managing the summer and winter campaigns. Thus, he facilitated their performance every year, putting some of high-ranking officers and governors in charge of them. These included the likes of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who built a bridge in Mandij for the benefit of the troops of the summer campaigns. Uthman instructed Muawiyah to invade Byzantine lands and told him to appoint whomever he wished to command the troops of the summer campaign. Muawiyah chose Sufyan ibn Auf, who was still part of the summer troops. In the time of Uthman, these winter and summer campaigns were not restricted to the land, they extended also to the sea. 13.6.5 Dividing the spoils between the people of Syria and the people of Iraq. Habib ibn Maslama managed to defeat the Byzantines in Armenia before Al-Walid ibn Uqba's backup arrived from Kufa. The people of Syria collected a great deal of booty, but after the reinforcements from Kufa had arrived, they deferred over their distribution. Habib wrote to Muawiyah about this matter. He in turn wrote to Uthman and informed him about the situation. Uthman radiallahu anhu ruled that the people of Syria must divide their spoils with the people of Iraq. When his letter reached Habib ibn Maslama, he read it out to the troops of Syria, who said, "We hear and we obey the commander of the faithful." They shared the spoils with the people of Iraq. And I think we saw something similar to this in the era of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab. When the reinforcements were on their way, Muslims won victory. So when the reinforcements arrived, they still shared the spoils with them because they were coming to their aid. They had left their posts, they had traveled, they were in the path of Allah. So yes, they should get, they should divide the spoils of wars as Umar did, Uthman bin Affan. Excuse me. He also did. So that's why they understand to say, again, obedience in Islam towards the one who is in authority is indeed an act of worship in itself. So that's why it's important that the Muslim citizen, Muslimin, the troops, they say, we hear and we obey. 13.6.6 stipulating in peace treaties, that basis needs to be fulfilled. When making treaties, the Muslim commanders stipulated that they should have enough livestock, food and drink to fulfill the needs of their army. They wanted these so that they would not need to burden themselves by having to carry such supplies from the main base. This would enable them to focus on fighting and defeating their enemy. 13.6.7 As the conquest continued during the time of Uthman bin Affan, he paid a great deal of attention to the latest news. His commanders would follow in the footsteps of their predecessors and focus upon sending spies to gather information about the enemy. In their treaties, they would also stipulate that the other side should be honest and warn them upon hearing that the enemy was heading their way. They were also required to work as spies for them and inform them of any enemy movements. 13.6.8 Abdurrahman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili, one of the commanders of the Conquest. Abdurrahman was a leader of high rank. Due to his strict adherence to his creed, he was trusted equally by his higher-ranking superiors and those under his command. He was also very brave and knowledgeable. For these reasons, he remained the commander and governor of Bab al-Abwab from the time of the death of Shuraqa ibn Amir until he was martyred himself. He was not dismissed despite the change of caliphs, governors and commanders in Kufa. To to whom Abdurrahman reported directly. He believed in chivalry and honorable warfare. He never cheated or betrayed anyone or stabbed someone in the back. Abdurrahman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili was a man who feared Allah a great deal and was very well mannered. The way he treated the defeated peoples established safety and order and spread al-Islam. The way he treated them, the way he established safety in al-Islam. Abdurrahman was noble, hospitable, gallant and enthusiastic. He was a religious scholar who feared Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and did not possess any worldly vanities, despite having spent most of his life on campaigns and working as a ruler. He was martyred in the 32nd year after the Hijriya in Balanjar, when Abdurrahman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili is regarded, or Abdurrahman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili is regarded as one of the leaders of Uthman's conquest. Next is Salman ibn Rabi'a al-Bahili, one of the leaders of the conquest. 13.6.9. The noble companion was the first to work as a judge in Kufa. It was not an easy job, considering the fact that Kufa was filled with important Arab figures and senior companions on the one hand, and different peoples and tribes on the other hand. This indicates that Salman had considerable knowledge and possessed the traits of great steadfastness, justice, and religiousness. Undoubtedly, he had excellent opinions balanced with a strong, trustworthy, and effective personality. He was a pious man who performed the Hajj every year. Some senior followers of the companions narrated hadith from him, and he displayed exceptionally fine manners. He was noble and hospitable, as mentioned before, gallant and enthusiastic, also faithful and truthful. He loved everything good. He loved for those, or he loved for others what he loved for himself. When he was martyred, he did not leave behind any money or a house, despite having spent his entire life as a warrior, judge, and commander. He was experienced in the art of warfare, for he had been practicing it for a long time. It was said that he hit his targets more accurately than a butcher deals with his camels, which indicates that he was a skilled archer. He was also an expert horseman. He would not kill even a disbelieving enemy before he had warned him. He would not kill anyone deceptively or while he was restrained. He was a good example of a truthful Muslim warrior who seeks the pleasure of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, fights to raise the word of Allah above everything else, and does not care how he dies as long as it is in the cause of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. With his honorable past and extraordinary and memorable deeds, he is a fine example for every soldier and every leader. He was martyred in the 32nd or the 33rd year after the Hijriya. 13.6.10. Habib ibn Maslama al-Fihri, one of the commanders also of the conquest. Despite the young age, Habib would move from one battle to another, sometimes as a conqueror and other times as reinforcement. In every battle, victory was on his side, alhamdulillah. In addition to his strong faith, one of the reasons he was so successful was that he used to raid the enemy at night, using the element of surprise to weaken their spirits and cause them to flee. He was a living example of true bravery and courage, for his men. He used to lead them in the front lines himself and tell them to follow him. He would never stay at the back, hoping to remain safe and sound. He used to consult his men and accept their advice. He would not make decisions independently. He would hold gatherings before, during, and after a battle to discuss matters. Habib was a clever strategist. He would think and evaluate the situation. He would consult his men and go to the battlefield to gather information about the enemy. After that, he would base his tactics on knowledge and insight. Whatever he did in war was well thought out rather than impulsive. Hence, he was victorious in the most dangerous battles during the conquest. Most importantly, Habib was a sincere believer. When he faced the enemy of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu or besieged their fortresses, he liked to say there is no power and no strength save Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, the high and mighty. Habib possessed all the qualities of an extraordinary leader. He rendered an unforgettable service to the Islamic conquest and was without doubt one of the most radiant commanders of the conquest in the time of Uthman. He passed away in the 42nd year of the Hijriya at the age of 54. His life was short in terms of years, but its impact should remain with us year after year and generation after generation. Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 291. We will go into Uthman's greatest achievement, uniting the Ummah with a single copy of the Quran. So I think this is very big for many who are unaware of the history of the Quran, what Uthman bin Affan had to do with staging and compiling the Quran, the first stage and so on. But we will pick it up. And apparently, again, I think 2 or 3 more of these sections, and then we get into Sayyidina Uthman's final days, which is very important to know how the turmoil spread from region to region and then eventually entered Medina and finally besieging Sayyidina Uthman in his home and murdering him. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.